Hello everybody, today we are going to talk about circles and circumference. Okay, so a circle is the set of all points in a plane that are equidistant from a center point, from a point called the center. Okay, so we got a couple words here. We're defining circle, and this is one of those words in math where you need to make sure you get all the words and they're all correct, because it says the set of all points in a plane that are equidistant from a point called the center. If you leave out the words in a plane, you get something entirely different. Okay, so you need to have those words in there. The word equidistant means equal distance. Okay, and then we got the center point. So let's just look right here. We've got a circle. Okay, so here's my center point. Here's the actual circle. These points are all the same distance away from the center point, and that distance is called the radius, or r. So the radius of a circle is the distance from the center to any point on the circle. So if I measure that distance from here to anywhere on that circle, that should be the same, and that's called the radius. Okay? The diameter of a circle is the distance from one point on the circle through the center point to another point on the circle. So you can't just go from like here to here. That's something else. It's actually called a chord. Okay, and the diameter is a chord, but the diameter is a chord that goes through the center point. Note that the diameter is always twice the length of the radius, because you've got basically a radius here and a radius here. Okay, so we get a couple of formulas out of that. You can write it either as the diameter is twice the radius, or you can write it as the radius is half the diameter. Either one of those works. Okay, so the diameter of a circle is 20 feet. Find the radius. All right, so remember that the radius is half the diameter, so the radius would be half of 20, and the radius would be 10 feet. Okay, easy enough. You could probably do that in your head. The radius of a circle is 7 meters. Find the diameter this time. Okay, so the diameter is twice the radius, and so that's 2 times 7. The diameter is 14 meters. Make sure you always put your units on there. Again, another one easy enough. You should probably just do that in your head. Okay. The distance around a circle is called the circumference. So if I've got a circle and I were to walk around this thing right here all the way back to where I started, that is the circumference of the circle. Now, it just so happens that people discovered a long time ago that if you take the circumference and divide it by the diameter, you always get the same number. Okay, the ratio circumference diameter divided by diameter is the same for every circle. If you take any circle and divide the circumference by the diameter, you always get the same number, 3.14159265535, and it just keeps going. It's an irrational number. It's a decimal that goes on forever and it never repeats. We call this number pi, which is the Greek letter P, and we represent it with that right there. So the circumference formula, the circumference C of a circle is equal to pi times the diameter. So here's what you get it from. So the ratio, or the radius, you said the circumference divided by the diameter is always equal to pi. Well, if I multiply both sides of this equation by d, I get C equals d times pi. Okay, so there's our formula. And then, of course, since the diameter is twice the radius, I could change this to 2 pi r. Oh, there we got the formulas right there. Circumference is diameter times pi, or the circumference is 2 times pi times the radius. Okay, I would know that formula. Definitely want to know that formula. So Find the circumference of the circle. Use 3.14 for pi. Now, pi is a number, we can't write it down exactly unless we just write down the letter pi. Okay, but there's a couple of approximations. So a lot of times we use 3.14 because the question is how accurate do you really need to be? And 3.14 usually gets that done. Another number that we use sometimes is the fraction 22 over 7 because 22 over 7 is pretty much 3.14. Okay, and it works really good when you have a radius that's a multiple of 7. So we're going to go ahead and find the circumference here. So the circumference is, if we have the radius, so we're going to use this formula, 2 pi times the radius. So circumference is 2 pi times 5. So the circumference is 10 pi. Now, if you were asked, what is the exact answer to this, you would say 10 pi inches. And you would just leave it like that. But that's not usually the most useful answer. So we usually, it says here, use 3.14 for pi. So 3.14 times 10 would be 31.4 inches. And I always like to put down both the exact and the approximate answers. Kind of covers my bases. Okay, like I said, it's often convenient to use the fraction 22 over 7 for pi, since it's very close to that value. And it usually, we use that for when the radius is a multiple of 7. So, find the circumference of the circle and use 22 over 7 for pi. Okay, so again, now this time we got the diameter. So, instead of using this formula, we're probably just going to use this formula, d pi. Okay, so C is going to be, the diameter is 28, and I'm going to use 22 over 7 because it asked me to do that for pi. And then what I can do is I can say, well, let's see, if I put this over 1, that cancels with that, and is 4, and this comes out to be 88 millimeters. And I'm done. So, like I said, when you've got a diameter or a radius that's a multiple of 7, you get really nice answers this way. You get whole number answers, and so that's a lot why they use 22 over 7. Okay, so you're going to get to do these. I'm going to give you a minute to pause the video, find the circumference of each of these circles, give the exact answer and an approximate answer, decide whether it is best to use 3.14 or 22 over 7 for pi. So you're going to decide that on your own. Pause the video here, do these problems, then jump back on and see how you did. Okay, on this one we've got a diameter. I'm going to use the formula C equals diameter times pi. And I'm just going to go ahead and plug 9 in for the diameter. So there's my exact answer, is 9 pi. I will get out my handy-dandy TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition graphing calculator or some reasonable facsimile thereof, and I will plug that in. So let's see, if this one probably best to use 3.14 for pi. So 9 times 3.14 is 28.26. That is my approximate answer. And this is in inches, okay? So I'll go ahead and put inches on those. And I'm done. So keep in mind, this is the exact answer, that's the approximate answer. People often mistake in that. They think, oh, this is the exact answer because it's got a decimal, it's really accurate. But no. When you change it to a decimal, since this is an irrational number, when you change this thing to a decimal, it's now not correct any longer. Okay. So this one's done. Let's go on to this one right here. Okay, so again, I'm going to use this formula. What did I just do? Okay. Let's go here. Circumference equals 2 pi r. Now I use 2 pi r this time because I got the radius. You don't have to. You can just double that in your head and say, oh, the diameter is 4. Okay, so circumference is 2 pi times 2, which is going to be 4 pi. And there's my exact answer. This is in centimeters. which is approximately, this would be one I'd use probably 3.14 for, so 4 times 3.14, that's 12.56. And there's my answer, and it's in centimeters. Okay, now this last one. I got a diameter of 14 feet, so the circumference is going to be diameter times pi. That's going to be 14, and since that's a multiple of 7, I'm going to go ahead and use 22 over 7 for pi on this one. And the 7's going to cancel with that, make that a 2. And this is going to come out to be 44 feet. This is approximate because I used 22 over 7. Now, if I wanted the exact value, that would be the diameter times pi, it'd just be 14 pi feet. Okay, so hopefully you got all those. Okay, the circumference of a roll of caution tape decreases 10.5 inches after a construction worker uses some of the tape. So here's what happened. You have this big roll of tape, you use a whole bunch of the tape, and now it's a smaller roll of the tape. Okay, so which is the best estimate of the diameter of the roll after the decrease? Okay, so it tells me here that the circumference of the roll of tape was 31.4 inches. So we're going to go ahead and figure out, let's see, the circumference was 31.4, and then it decreased 10.5. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 10.5 out of there. And so that's going to be 0.9, it's going to be 0, and that's going to be 2. So it's now 20.9 inches. Okay, so now we got to figure out what's the diameter now. Okay, so the circumference is the diameter times pi, and this is now 20.9. And we're going to go ahead and use 3.14 for pi. So I would take this and I would divide this by 3.14 on both sides. And I get D is approximately, so 20.9 divided by 3.14. It's going to be 6.65 inches. So there's your best answer right there, 7 inches. Okay, this is called a semicircle. It's half of a circle. All right, the semicircle is a half of a circle. Find the perimeter of the semicircular region. Okay, so here's the thing: is you've got this part right here, which is half the circumference of the circle. So I need to find the circumference. So the circumference of this circle would be the diameter times pi, and I want half of that. So it's going to be half of 6 times pi, which is going to be 3 pi. Now, the thing is, that's just the yellow part here. I need to add this part because that's part of the circumference of this semicircle. So I'm going to add 6. Okay, so this is in meters, and that's my exact answer right there. 3 pi plus 6 meters. I can't give a more exact answer than that. Now, that's not necessarily a useful answer. Okay, so if I usually want a number, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go 3 times 3.14 plus 6 on my calculator, and I'm going to get about 15.42 meters. Okay, so there's my answers. This is exact. This is approximate. This is probably the more useful one. Okay, so I'm going to let you pause the video and do these 2 problems right here. Find the perimeter of those semicircular regions. Pause the video here and get that done and then jump back on. Okay, so again, my circumference is going to be the diameter times pi, but I only want half of that because it's a semicircle, and I'm going to get this part of this right here. Okay, so the diameter is 2, so the circumference is 2 times pi times 1/2, which is the half and 2 cancel out. This is just pi. Okay, and then I got to add the 2 feet for this part right here. Let's do this in a different color so it stands out. Plus 2. So this is my exact answer right there. Pi plus 2 feet. And since pi is 3.14, this is approximately 5.14 feet. So there's my answers. Okay, this one over here, we're going to use the other formula this time. So the circumference is going to be 2 pi r because they gave you the radius. But again, I only want half of that because that's this part, right? Okay, so the circumference is going to be pi times the radius, which is going to be 15 pi. And then I have to add 30 for this side right here. So this right here, this is 30 inches. So plus 30 inches. Okay, so there's the exact answer. And then if I want something a little more useful, my circumference is going to be approximately 15 times 3.14 plus 30. It's going to be about 77.1 inches. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully you got both those answers. Okay, you get to do problems 1 through 29 odd in class next time, and I will see you guys later.